Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 101 of the Salvaggio and Cratty Sports Podcast. Here for you on a Wednesday night at 7:20 p.m., a little earlier than usual. I wonder how the audio is going to sound when it's all said and done in a new apartment. So a little echoey, but I think it'll come out fine when it's all said and done. Another Wednesday night. We're into the 100s firmly now with episode 101. No jersey numbers again for anybody who would, who's missing those. But moments of the week to start. But before then, Ryan, how are we doing heading into the long weekend?
I'm doing good. I just got back from vacation. Actually, was down the Cape for a couple of days this previous weekend, so that was good. I was right about my Stanley Cup Finals prediction. Maybe the one time I've ever been right over you when it comes to hockey. So I'll take that. I'll take my rare victory there. But then there are some negatives too. I mean, the Red Sox, the way that game ended last night, we'll get to them a little later. I don't know how waking up today, you can't be just absolutely infuriated if you're a Red Sox fan. Some Celtics stuff as well as I think NBA free agency opens up, might be midnight tonight. I know we just discussed that. I meant to look it up time wise, but that is right around the corner as well. How are you doing with the new digs? Obviously, like you kind of teased last week, you would be recording from a new location. You were on location. How's it going so far?
It's good. I love it. My commute is much less. My life is less stressful or getting less stressful. So that's good. Not spending 3 hours a day on the road. So that's wonderful.
Perfect.
Love that. Spending about like half hour instead. Mm-hmm. So
that's awesome.
Very good. Love the place where we just got a kitchen table yesterday. So that's important. Mm-hmm. We had the island next to me in the kitchen, but we're not just going to eat on an island every night or eat on the couch. So it's working and couldn't be happier. It's good to just get the process over with and move forward, sign the lease and bing bang boom. So moments of the week, we're both talking Stanley Cup Finals in our moments of the week. Mine it begins with the Stanley Cup picture going around from Mike Chambers, the Denver Post, which people are getting mad about because they're stupid and bored. Mike Chambers, Denver Post, takes a picture of him holding the cup in some sort of celebration after they won. I get the whole cigar part. Maybe feel like, oh, like you're media and you're smoking a cigar, celebrating with the cup. But like the guy had an opportunity to take a picture with the Stanley Cup and lift it over his head and took it. Like,
I think that's a no-brainer. It doesn't matter what your department is.
Of media in the world, because there are some that are like, no, like I don't hold my journalistic integrity that I got in broadcast journalism school. That's not a shot at journalism, but just some people are just dorks and like too married to like the book and the rule book. It's just lame. Like he took a picture with the Stanley Cup. That's cool. Like,
yeah, absolutely
cool. It's just so weird. Like it goes back to a whole thing on social media. People like just love finding a way to get like upset about stupid shit. Like their opinions like high and mighty. Like who cares, dude? Like sorry you didn't get a picture with the cup. Like
yeah, talk about having a stick up your ass. Like
it's so lame. I'm not like calling out everybody who had a problem with it, but just certain people. Like I saw a couple tweets go viral about it. I'm like, oh my God, like who cares? Like
I was surprised at how negative the response was. Like I get, like you said, I get like this. When I saw the picture, I'm like, wow, that guy is like same thing. Cigar was maybe a little bit too much, but he looked like he was like lit and then some. But again, the guy has a chance to take a picture, like you said, with the Stanley Cup. From the couple of responses I saw, I'm pretty sure like Landeskog let him do it. It's not like he just went about it himself. Like he got the okay from Gabriel Landeskog, so that's fine there. But just a lot of the negative, like you said, like, oh, how dare this guy, the journalistic integrity, like let's just take it back a notch. Like I saw some people were like, oh, it's just people being jealous that this guy got a chance to take a picture and they didn't. But yeah, I just kind of overwhelming negative response to this, I found just like same with you, a little ridiculous and a little over the top to say the least.
Yeah, it's just really not worth getting worked up about, I don't think. But I get where these people are coming from. You're supposed to be like unbiased and all this crap you can spew around. That's not to diminish it, but it comes back to the same point where like he had an opportunity to take a picture with the Stanley Cup with the approval of the team and the captain.
Nope.
And did it. Like, that's really it to me. Like, cool. Like, I would have done the same thing. Bruins
absolutely. I get it.
And Bergeron says, yeah, you can take a picture with it. Hold
yeah, absolutely.
Like, yeah, okay, I'm going to do that.
Sure.
Like,
yeah. That sounds like a solid plan.
Potential once in a lifetime opportunity. Like, obviously.
I get it. Or I would get the negative reaction more if Colorado, and as we're going to get to in my moment of the week, they just seem to be a little reckless with the Stanley Cup so far with how short of a time they've had it. I would understand if they just kind of left it out like in the locker room or in like a corner somewhere. And the guy was like, oh shit, that's the Stanley Cup. No one's around. I'm going to sneak a picture with this thing really quick, even though I shouldn't. Like, again, like you said, he got the okay from the team. Landeskog was right there in the picture. I don't know if there's any other pictures going around, but the one I saw, I'm assuming it's the main one, was he was standing right there with him. So it's not like, again, he went behind anybody's back and did it like in any sort of secrecy. So I just don't, again, like you said, the cigar maybe makes it a little bit too much. Like, okay, he's a little too loosey-goosey here. But for the most part, like, again, if you get that opportunity, I feel like you'd be dumb not to take it.
Yeah. And me personally, I would take it 100%.
Absolutely.
Like,
yep.
100%.
You do it with any trophy. Like if you were NFL reporter, you get a chance to take a picture with the Super Bowl trophy, World Series, anything. Like,
yeah. But like you said, the Avalanche have had a tough go with the cup a little bit. It kind of goes full circle because Michael Ryder dented the cup in 2011, the cup itself, and then Nicholas Aube-Kubel skating over to the picture. I assume this is just because he was the last one with the cup when all the players were skating around with it. Makes sense. He's kind of like a like fourth liner, extra forward type. Stumbles and drops the cup, and like all the faces, like I saw people screenshotting like everybody's reaction. Like Kadri had a funny one, McKinnon had a funny one, Rantanen had a good one. So funny, and I mean, it was a classic prank. It was a classic
absolutely
prank.
That's the best way you can describe it. I think
It's really what it was, guys. It's not like he stumbled on accident,
Did you notice it right out of the gate, though? Did you know it was because while watching it with my dad down the Cape, we both saw I'm pretty sure the cup's dented now. And then skating around a couple of times, you're like, oh, crap, they haven't even had it for 5 minutes. I found that part funny. And then today, scrolling through Twitter, I saw Denver 7 News, their Twitter account. They posted, it was obviously from a couple of days ago, Colorado getting back with the cup. And it looked like there was another dent right under where the original one. So they've dented the thing twice and having it less than what would we say 72 hours or so. Like, have they even had their parade yet? They haven't even. I don't know if they have or not. But
I don't think they have.
They've dented it. I can't imagine if once they finally have that. Like, God, I don't know what the equivalent of like a duck boat out in Colorado would be or out in Denver would be when they have their parade. But like, could you imagine if they drop it again or like the bull part? Like, that's what I'm waiting for, is like they come back with it and like, oh, we just completely destroyed the thing and now it's dented up and down the cup, the bull's half hanging off. Like, the whole thing was just ridiculous.
Apologies to anybody who said anything in the Twitter chat. I just pulled it up, so if you've said anything in the Twitter chat, I'm sorry, but yeah, it's pretty funny. Like, it sucks at the same time to see the cup get dented. It kind of gives like, oh, like, damn it, like, why did that have to happen? But like,
it's like, come on, guys, act like we've been here before.
About it.
Yeah,
like if somebody did something stupid, like to break, I mean, Kubel, what he did was pretty stupid, but it was accidental. Like, it's
toe picked himself.
I'm gonna toe pick myself. Dent the fucking cup.
Here, guys, catch.
Yeah, like that would have been funny if he just threw it to one of his teammates.
Played it off like, whoa, I can't, like,
whoa, Nicholas, what the fuck? Why this thing's 35 pounds?
Yeah,
guys, it's just a prank. Jeez,
take it easy.
Oh man, that was funny though. Like, now the logical next step, if they're just, they're having all these mishaps, just for someone or multiple people to go Ovi mode in 2018, like shirt off, like
take it everywhere
and just take it everywhere and go crazy.
Yep.
Eric Johnson is the picture this year of the guy who, like, oh, did this guy sleep with the cup? Did he do anything to the cup?
Yeah.
Be a little unsavory.
Oh God.
That everybody jokes about.
It's your mind out of the gutter. That's bad.
I mean, it's a joke every year. Like someone posts a picture in bed with the cup, like, oh, do they, the cup?
What happened there? Like,
I mean, it's funny that
how many dents are going to be in it after that goes down? Like,
yeah.
Sorry.
Geez.
It's a low hanging fruit. You have to take it sometimes.
Yeah. It's funny that it was Johnson too. I mean, 14 years he's waited. He's, just been there for so long. And, his career, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on this. I think he was drafted by St. Louis and ended up in Colorado eventually. But yeah, he was drafted. Yeah, he was first overall. I don't know why I drew a blank of whether he got drafted by Colorado or St. Louis that year. But yeah, I mean, guy's been in the league for a long time. Wins the cup. He was crying after, like, the hug on the ice with McKinnon. Just an extremely easy team to root for. Both tier 5s from us.
Yep.
But before we get into more Stanley Cup stuff, other hockey stuff, we do have some Celtics talk to get to.
Yeah, there's been a couple of things. Obviously, like I said, NBA free agency starts up. We'll say midnight tonight again. It's a tentative time. Don't know for a fact. There was the NBA draft. The Celtics did make a pick. I kind of forgot about the draft. Not going to lie, with Celtics not picking until I think it was pick like 53, might have been 54, somewhere in that range. But kind of the bigger Celtics news that's come out the last couple of days is, I don't know if you saw Jaylen Brown. Obviously, you're a big Jaylen Brown supporter, as am I. For rightfully so. But Jaylen Brown, there's been some news about him. Monday, WEEI posted an article on Twitter bringing up the question, does Jaylen Brown feel disrespected by the Celtics fan base? This was in response to a tweet that Jaylen Brown liked on Sunday saying that, quote, Jaylen Brown is disrespected by Celtics fans. So obviously read into that how much you will. Of course, a lot of people like to lean on Twitter stuff. Like I said, I think last week, it is eye emoji season with everything that goes down. But that's caught a lot of people talking, should Jaylen Brown feel disrespected by Celtics fans? Does he have the right to feel disrespected by Celtics fans? You and I have talked very highly of Jaylen Brown whenever we have, because rightfully so, he's been very good since he's been in the league. But we've also talked about plenty of times, again, around this time of year, and it's come up, of course, should the Celtics trade Jaylen Brown for insert superstar player here? Should it be Kevin Durant? We talked about that hypothetical last week. WEI, the Greg Hill show the other day, I saw on their Twitter, they posted a clip discussing with all the Kyrie Irving stuff. Again, that same exact reaction you just had is what I pretty much did. Would you trade Jaylen Brown for Kyrie Irving? This was, of course, before Kyrie Irving opted back into his deal, surprisingly, with the Brooklyn Nets. So I'll just ask you the question right out of the gate. We'll jump into this. I know I've kind of rambled a little bit. Should Jaylen Brown feel disrespected by the Celtics fans? And if so, does he have even a case to do so? Because I think there's some things there that make him think so. You do too?
Yeah, I'll say like the Kyrie stuff too, like surprisingly, unsurprisingly, because at this point his market is limited. But at the same time, you might want to be like, okay, I'll just come back to the Nets because I have the option. The market's limited. It kind of goes both ways. Like he could try and get the money and get the situation he wants elsewhere, but at the same time, it's kind of like a safety net option to go back to the Nets. Even though the situation is a little turbulent, I'd say.
More than a little, but
trading Jaylen Brown for Kyrie Irving is worse than the suggestions of trading Jaylen Brown for James Harden, arguably. Like they're both
think so.
Bad. But like they're on the same wavelength at least. Like it's just stupid. Like it goes back to the whole radio thing too. Like I don't like to perpetuate this that much, but like there are just storylines out there and even on TV that are just like, you can tell these people can't actually believe these things. They're doing it for ratings.
Just, throw shit against the wall and hope it sticks.
It's a crazy thought. It's a crazy thought. I'm not even going to give it much more energy. But I think Jaylen Brown absolutely has a right to feel disrespected because he was doubted when he was drafted by a lot of people, not me. There's always been like the trade talks here and there, can he connect with Jason Tatum? Can he be a leader? Can he, continue to grow? Whatever it might be. There's just a lot surrounding him. It's still happening, still trade stuff happening, like speculation when he's established himself as a star in the league. Like it's just stupid. And, it's the NBA. I think the most wild speculation in all of sports comes out of NBA fans and media.
I 100% agree with you there. That's no debate.
Yeah. But like he absolutely has a reason to feel disrespected. And is that to say he doesn't feel respected by Celtics fans, the organization at all? No, but like there are segments of people's takes and attitudes and stuff towards him, where he absolutely has a right to feel disrespected, but at the same time, he is respected by a lot of people that have brains in the organization, who are willing to pay him, make a big financial commitment, and make him a central figure, and he's taking advantage of it for the large majority of his time, especially since he signed that extension. So it goes a little bit both ways, but it just requires context in different areas. So yeah,
I mean, I agree with you. Like you mentioned, since he was drafted with all these questions, like you mentioned about, can he play with Tatum? Is he, a superstar level? That question has come up. I think you saw a lot of those questions answered this year, especially the can he play with Tatum stuff that I think got put to bed. We talked about it, Celtics obviously 2 wins away from an NBA finals. And we both adamantly agreed that if they were to win the finals, he was going to be the unanimous, unless Tatum dropped 60 in games 6 and 7, both games, and had like a triple double in each game. I think he may have surpassed Brown, but Jaylen Brown, if the Celtics won the finals, was the odds-on favorite to win MVP. So, and obviously we're just we can't obviously talk about that too much because they didn't win. But like, it's just, again, the questions of every offseason, like it has to take a toll on a guy at some point. At every trade deadline, every offseason, like I was shocked when I heard, Brian Scalabrine
on social media too. Like this
absolutely,
is what players, like it's different. Like 8 to 10 years ago when you might not see it as much. Like these guys, they might not even seek it out, but they still just see it sometimes.
Yeah. Yep. It's there. I mean, I was shocked when, Brian Scalabrine, I think, is one of the bigger, Celtics supporters. He's one of the, I feel like it isn't going to get on Brown and Tatum for too much stuff. And the fact that he was one of the guys that came out and talked about, the Celtics, his quote was, have the best trade package for Kevin Durant. And it featured Jaylen Brown, 3 picks, 2 rights to swap, and Daniel Tice. Like that, again, like I think we're at the point now where we're not, and the Celtics know this. Brad Stevens probably knows this, that they've talked about it enough that, Tatum and Brown are the building block guys. They're going to build around those 2 guys. So hopefully Brown listens to that more than the wild speculation of trading for Durant, or like you said in the past, trading for James Harden, or trading for Kyrie Irving, which again, like you've lived that nightmare. I don't even know why, other than the reason that you said that you will just take the story and run with it for ratings.
I'll say this too real quick. Like in terms of his trust with Stevens and the organization, I think it might be different on his like future here if like Stevens really botched things this year. But like
absolutely
Stevens earned the respect like with everything he did and the lateral moves he made, like going into the season, early in the season, and then getting Derek White, integrating Al Horford into becoming like a core piece. Like I feel like the respect has to be mutual, and just to add to the whole like scenario here, like the whole situation surrounding him. So
but yeah, I mean, I just found that a bit insane that again we're sitting here when you had a chance to win the finals, and now we talked about this last week with all the crazy speculation that came up. Should you go out and get another superstar? Should you just add pieces? Like we're not. I think we're in an agreement. A lot of people are. We're not in the process of blowing this team up. This is the Brown and Tatum duo is what you're building around. So again, the fact that Jaylen Brown trade stuff has come up, I don't fault him for feeling disrespected. I mean, I hope it's a small part of the fan base that, he feels disrespected by, and not, Celtics fan base as a whole. I don't think that's the case. But I think he has a legitimate gripe to feel with all this crap that's come out. Like you said, he has to see this, whether it's, if he's all over social media and sees it, or just, snippets here and there. But like, I just found that kind of interesting. That was one of the main talking points of the Celtics this week. And, hopefully it's something that doesn't tend to linger, because obviously we like Jaylen Brown here and we don't want them to trade Jaylen Brown for really anything. Like at this point, this is what you have. This is what you're going with. It pretty damn near worked almost perfectly towards the end of the season. But who knows? We'll have to see moving forward. Some other stuff with the Celtics, like I said, there was the NBA draft. They took one player. It was 19-year-old freshman J.D. Davison, a point guard out of Alabama. Not a ton on this kid stat-wise. Like I said, just 1 year at Alabama, played 33 games, 5 starts, averaged 8.5 points, 46.3% from the field, 30.1% from deep. So a decent, kind of okay 3-point shooter, nothing crazy, 4.8 rebounds per game, 4.3 assists. This was from a Boston.com article. This was Alabama beat writer Tony, I think it's Tsoukalas, I'm just going to say Tsoukalas. He broke down, Davison's potential and just some stuff on him. In case people like myself didn't really know anything about the prospect, other than the fact that he has a wild afro. I don't know if you saw the videos that were posted on Twitter of him dunking, and just the crazy, kind of like the afro Rob Williams had when he was first drafted. My dad likes to call it the Sideshow Bob haircut. If there's any Simpsons fans listening, this kid legitimately has a Sideshow Bob haircut. Like it's crazy. I can't get over.
I think Sideshow Bob is a little more unruly.
That's true. His is more,
a little different, but same ballpark.
Yep, think so. But yeah, just some stuff on Davis. Sukalos was asking on what Celtics fans should know about the player. He said, quote, he's a guy that's a top 20 talent in last year's recruiting class, and a guy I think a lot of people expected to be a lottery pick, but he struggled to find consistency. He's a truly gifted athlete. He probably is one of the better athletes in the draft. For a team that didn't have a first-round pick, I think the Celtics knocked it out of the park. They got a first-round talent, so that's obviously good to see. Obviously, like we said last week, we weren't going to do a ton of draft stuff because we didn't really know what to expect with the draft, with the Celtics picking in the second round. Didn't want to spend a ton of time on, prospects really didn't know anything about, but that's good to hear that. And maybe it's just, this guy talking up in Alabama private. He probably has to do that a little bit, but if he thinks he's a first round guy, he could have been a potentially lottery pick, but some consistency, hopefully he can, regain some consistency and, be a solid piece in the he's not going to start with the Celtics. I think I saw a couple of tweets that were like, this kid's probably going to go to Maine for a couple of years, which makes sense. Only 19 years old. Like he's not a lottery pick, not a Jason Tatum type, who of course came in at 19.
Pretty crazy that Jason Tatum is still 19.
I know. Yeah. Well, that was one of the tweets I saw too. Everyone's like, get ready for the JD Davison's only 19 tweets to come up like they did for Tatum. But
yeah. JD Davison, I mean, everything I hear seems pretty promising. He's a young player, which is always nice. You can kind of draft and stash for a little bit, develop him in Maine, hopefully.
Yep.
This is Stevens' first draft at the helm, so I have no reason but to not trust in Stevens, so I'm going to. I like all these breakdowns we got. He's a gifted passer. I like that. Gifted athlete, a lot of gifted talk thrown around. Potential top 20 talent is nice. Maybe it's a guy that comes in with these high expectations, doesn't live up to him, and then you catch that diamond in the rough value type of thing in the second round.
Gotta love that. Yep.
So I like it. I mean, there's no real reason not to. He just sounds like a guy with some exciting offensive skills, can make plays and be kind of like a complimentary point guard off the bench, at least to start when he gets here, and make some plays. So there's nothing about him really that I've heard that I'm super worried about. And it sounds like, in 2 to 3 years, he could probably be a pretty decent impact player, at least off the bench to start. And yeah, I mean, he was in talking about his Alabama season. I think pretty much any freshman, you're bound to make mistakes here and there.
Yep, absolutely.
And if you're limiting him, you're going in the top 5 or something. So, yeah, it sounds like a good project to take on and develop, in a guy that's got some exciting offensive abilities potentially. So,
yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the thing I've seen too. Is a couple of tweets I saw was Brad Stevens got the best available player at the spot he had in the draft, and like you said, is obviously a lot of reading through a couple of things. It seems to be this, he's a raw talent type of guy. So this, like you said, it's going to be a work in progress, which I'm fine with. Second round pick, you're not really investing a ton in. So if he works out, like you mentioned, if you can get a top 20 guy at 53 or 54, whatever it was, that's obviously very good. A couple other things, like you said, combo guard at Alabama, played point guard and shooting guard, but Sukalos sees him as more of a point guard. Like you said, gifted passer, decision-making is kind of where he struggles at times. And then, because people like to obviously talk about NBA comparisons, players, stuff like that. He was asked about that. So, quote, when you think of his dunking ability, that was the big thing I saw too on Twitter, was this kid's a pretty ferocious dunker. So that'll obviously get people on their feet if he's obviously given the chance to play in Boston, whenever that may be. When you think about his dunking ability and the power in his game, Ja Morant comes to mind. He's a bigger kid than Ja and is pretty muscular. I think he could be a real menace. He's almost like Marcus Smart in terms of being an absolute unit. So obviously, again, if you can get a Marcus Smart in the second round, that's good. If you can get a Ja Morant type player in the second round, I think you're going to have to be thrilled with that. Obviously not saying this kid's got the same offensive ability that Ja Morant has, but from a dunking standpoint and just pure tenaciousness or ferocity, I guess, they kind of see the same similarities there between him and Morant, which is good. That's obviously something, if you can get that late in the draft, then you got to be happy with it.
Yeah, no complaints from me. And, back to the decision-making too, when I was talking about things that could worry about, he's 19, decision-making things are okay. And part of it is he could have decision-making problems at Alabama, but he could find a system in Maine/Boston, and those really might not end up being a problem in a different system. So we'll see what happens. It's kind of a wait and see type of player. So right now the return looks good, and it looks like he could be a solid player at some point down the line. So no real complaints from me.
Nope, absolutely not. Like I said, we only have one draft pick, not a ton to get into there, but just nice that they seem to, like you said, maybe potentially found a diamond in the rough type guy, but we are in wait and see mode when it comes to JD Davis.
Yeah,
like I said,
so just one thing, I wanted to see who the Spurs took with the pick.
Celtics. Oh, the pick the Celtics gave him. Yep. For Derek
Blake Wesley. Blake Wesley from
never heard of
Notre Dame.
Okay.
He's a guard, 6'4", 187. So yeah, that's what they took for anybody curious.
All right.
Including myself, I was curious. So
I didn't pay a ton of attention to the NBA draft because I really didn't follow
I didn't watch a second of it. But
no, didn't follow a ton of it when it comes to or came to prospects or anything like that outside of the big three that went obviously the first three picks. But other than that, nothing too crazy like we've had to talk about in years past. Because again, they only had one pick in the second round, and we weren't all that interested in second round picks. But hopefully this Davison kid turns out to be a nice little piece that maybe Brad Stevens can find.
Yep. I'll do some trade rumors though. Alec Burks is at the top of the list, and there's been some news about him as of late.
And he is out. Yes, he was. I didn't even see this until this morning. Apparently, he was traded late last night with Nerlens Noel to Detroit. From I believe it was the Knicks he was on, right? I forgot to put that on there. Yeah, he was with the Knicks. The Knicks got back, I believe, their own 2023 second round pick, 2024 second round pick via Miami, and $6 million, like I said, Tuesday night when that came through. Like you mentioned, Burks had been linked to the Celtics. This is from NBC Sports Boston article from Darren Hartwell. To quote, the Celtics turned down a trade offer from the Knicks earlier this month that would have sent guard Alec Burks to Boston. Mass Live's Brian Robb reported Wednesday. Now the Celtics, like I think you added this. Maybe you did. I don't know if you did or not. You did. Okay. The Celtics have their eyes on Danilo Gallinari. He was traded he was traded in the I can't think of
trade. DeJounte Murray.
DeJounte Murray and 3 first-round picks. Crazy deal. It seems like Gallinari is going to get waived or bought out by San Antonio, so the Celtics could be in on him in the buyout market. And again, we are in trade player exception. I think that's what TPE is. Again, got to look that up. But we're in full TPE season. Celtics have a couple of them. Obviously, the biggest one is the $17.1 million one that they have via the Evan Fournier trade from last season, or the sign and trade with the Knicks. Burks could have fit well into that. He set to make $10 million this season. That could have been, like I said, absorbed into the $17.1 million. But all reports indicate that the Celtics are looking to add a better piece within that TPE. Danilo Gallinari fits that mold. Some other guys that have come up in the past that you've mentioned. Kevin Huerter is a name that has been thrown around a little bit, obviously linked to the Celtics in the past with the Marcus Smart trade rumors last season. Luke Kennard's name has come up. The Clippers are looking to add John Wall if they haven't already. So they're going to have to move some salary to accommodate Wall. Kennard's name has come up and is a piece they're probably going to move. Jay Crowder's name has come up recently. This is from Sean Devaney of Heavy.com. He talked to, quote, an anonymous NBA executive who said the Phoenix Suns for Jay Crowder is, quote, gettable in the trade market. The executive said, quote, he's a guy who to me makes the most sense for them because he has that toughness they want. He's been in the finals. He's played deep in the playoffs for a lot of years, and they could use another big guy to stretch the floor. And Ime loves a tough guy. That's the kind of player he was, of course, talking about Ime Udoka. So a lot of names there thrown at you. Of course, Cam Reddish is another one that's come out. I don't know how true that is because I haven't really seen him linked to the Celtics. The only report I saw was Michael Scott, who said, quote, the Knicks could trade Cam Reddish to create more cap space for a run at Jalen Brunson. Cam Reddish isn't really
they're going after Brunson from the sounds of
it seems like they're going to go after him pretty hard. Obviously the Knicks need as many star players as they can get. So if they can get him, that'd be a good start. Reddish isn't a guy that all that really entices me. Again, he fits the TPE. But couldn't really crack the rotation with the Knicks last year. I think that's kind of telling. Like if you can't play with a crappy Knicks team last year, like I don't know how much help you're going to be off the bench for a true playoff contender and a true finals contender. Burks would have been a nice piece. Seemed like the Celtics were really on him. But again, it seems like Brad Stevens is kind of in wait and see mode to try to get maybe a better player with that 17.1 million TPE. Gallinari, like I said, wouldn't be a bad piece there. But Huerter and Kennard and even Jay Crowder, we talked about this the other day off there. I wouldn't be opposed to having Jay Crowder come back here in the final year of his contract.
Yeah, I mean, Crowder could be kind of like the Horford in this sense.
I think so.
Year, like a former Celtic that makes his way back.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on Herder for a little while. I think if they could make it happen, I think it'd be a little pricey. But if they can make it happen, it'd be a good fit, kind of perfect. Kennard, I've heard good things about. Leading the NBA in 3-point percentage doesn't hurt as well for your resume as a trade target. And Cam Reddish, I've heard kind of mixed things on Cam Reddish, but I mean, he's 22. He was very highly touted in college and going into his draft year. And, I bet there's still some potential there. So in the right deal, I wouldn't hate Cam Reddish personally. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Like, losing out on Burks isn't really a huge deal to me. If they don't end up with Crowder, it's not a huge deal. But, I think that would be pretty solid if they end up with Crowder. But yeah, not really one here that I'm like super against. I'm kind of cool with any of these. And I'm just trusting Brad Stevens. He showed us good things in his first year in his new role. And I'm just going to trust him until he gives me a reason not to. That's where I'm at.
Yep. Yeah, he's done, I think we talked about this before. He's done nothing to waver your trust or anything like that. He's made every move he's made so far has worked out well. We really didn't touch on it. It kind of breezed through it pretty quickly. But did you have any overarching thoughts on the Murray trade? I saw some people on Twitter were like, "Oh, the Celtics probably could have done that." Gallinari's not a star player by any means. He's a decent, role player, not as good as he used to be. And the 3 first-round picks, I thought I saw one of those picks is from Charlotte, I think it's could potentially be a top 10 pick if things work out. If Charlotte misses the playoffs, so that was kind of the big selling point, I think, for San Antonio, who looks to be a lottery team or is looking to be that. They're kind of in rebuild mode now, trading a guy that was looked at as maybe the next, big name in San Antonio. But now with Murray gone, obviously they kind of got nothing now. But do you find the Celtics didn't make that deal a little too much, or are you kicking yourself like some people?
The funny thing is, I was talking to a coworker. I was like, "Oh, Danilo Gallinari like to the Celtics. What do you think?" Mm-hmm. He's like, "Yeah, know who he suggested? Who we want to see on the Celtics? Murray."
Okay, so
right after one another, we talked about 2 players that were traded for each other.
Yeah.
How wild
what a
is
funny,
that?
Coinky dink that is.
Coinky dink happenstance, coinky dink happenstance, whatever it might be to you. Just interesting how that all worked out. I feel like Atlanta got a pretty good player, and if they're trying to win, which Murray can help them with, hopefully for their sake, I don't imagine those 3 first-round picks really mean much to them. So I respect them for going for it. Let's see how it works. And Gallinari, I think they just wanted to get him off the book. So
yep, I think that's the consensus. Gallinari, I was just looking up his stats now. Were you doing that? Not a terrible, season with Atlanta last year. Played 66 games, 18 starts, 11.7 points off the bench. Shot 31.8% or 38.1%, from deep. So obviously that would help the Celtics if they can get him on the buyout market or the waiver market, whatever you want to call it. I wouldn't have hated a trade for Murray. Again, the 3 first-round picks and the ability to get into the top 10, I think with that Charlotte pick, like I said, is what made the deal for San Antonio. I don't know if the Celtics had anything that could match that, really. They don't have – they could trade first-round picks. I don't know what player, contract-wise, would have added up with Gallinari. I saw or heard Jimmy Stewart listen to the Felger Maz say Al Horford, but would you really want to have traded Al Horford in that deal? And then there's the question, Marcus Smart has, been very vocal the last couple of days about, the rumors the Celtics need a true point guard, a true ball handler. And he talked about, the last couple of times they brought superstar point guards in here. Hasn't really worked out that well. When you take the ball out of Marcus Smart's hands, say what you will about him. It hasn't tended to work out in the past. I kind of feel the same way. Like if you brought Murray in here, Smart kind of diverts into the shooting guard position. And we all know what happens when Marcus Smart thinks of himself as more of a shooter. So yeah, Murray would have been a nice piece, but this isn't a trade that is gonna, I feel like, haunt me by any means. Cause it's a deal that, could you really have done it in the first place? And did you really need, again, when we talked about what the Celtics needed going into the offseason, a true point guard wasn't really high on either one of our lists. I don't think. Definitely wasn't on mine. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think you had it high on yours either. But we'll see if it works. I'm curious to see if it works out with Atlanta, like we kind of talked about before we jumped on here. Trae Young's the primary ball handler there. He's a guy that is going to play without the ball more, so maybe that's good for him. But I don't know if maybe taking the ball out of his hands is going to be the best thing. Not a great defender either, so I think that's kind of where Murray comes in as a big piece, as he's going to pick up the slack defensively for Trae Young. So we'll see how that works out there. On the Crowder thing really quick, again, I wouldn't be opposed to bringing Jay Crowder back. I think his best days are probably behind him. You know, that 2014-17 first stretch with Boston, he was very good there, was a starter for the most part. If you get him as a bench piece, wouldn't hate that. He's got, he's played with Smart, he's played with Horford, played with Brown for a couple of years, so he's got the familiarity there. Never played with Jason Tatum. That first year Tatum was in the league, he was gone. He was part of, obviously, the Cleveland trade for Kyrie Irving. But wouldn't be opposed to bringing Jay Crowder back. He's on the last year of his deal with Phoenix. They're looking to cut salary, I think. And again, we've talked about it before. Kennard and Herter, either one of those guys I'd be fine with. It gives you a legitimate scorer off the bench, legitimate 3-point threat as well, like you mentioned with Kennard. He led the NBA in 3-point percentage last season. Herter, like you said, probably going to be more pricey. Is coming off a career high in field goal percentage and 3-point percentage last year, and is in the first year of a 4-year, $65 million extension that he signed, I believe, last season. So maybe, a role piece has to go back, a Peyton Pritchard and Aaron Nesmith. Would you give up Grant Williams? What'd you say?
Fine with me.
Yeah, I would be fine with that too. So Kennard, again, probably on the cheaper side because it looks like LA is just trying to cut salary more than anything else. So maybe you can just give a pick or two for him. Either one I'd be fine with 100%, just to, like we said, tinker with the bench a little bit and give you the scoring that the Celtics desperately needed come the end of the season.
Yeah, small switch up. Might be a big name, but
nothing too crazy.
Bench, not like rehauling the whole thing.
Well, there is one, I didn't mention it earlier, but I don't know if you saw the report today that Bradley Beal opted out of his player option. So he is officially starting tomorrow, a free agent. So that might, stir some things up a little bit. I don't know if that changes our thoughts on wanting Bradley Beal or not, now that he is going to be a legitimate free agent.
It just sucks they can't afford him.
It might take some jumping through hoops and stuff. Can only sign a 4-year deal with the Celtics as opposed to a 5-year max with Washington if he decides to go back there. I think that's probably what he's going to do, if I had to guess right now, because I think he gets more money annually if he does that than what he was making now. So that would make a lot of sense. And then there's been talk already that, could he sign the long-term extension with Washington, and then if they have a bad season, try to force his way out a year or two into his contract. And now you'll have that discussion come up if the Celtics should jump in on that down the road. But we'll have to wait and see. Of course, like I said, free agency doesn't start until tomorrow, so I'm sure things will get crazier as the night goes on. Hopefully, maybe the Celtics make a move or two or a link to something, and we can maybe discuss if something breaks.
Yep. NBA is about to go crazy mode.
Mm-hmm.
We're already seeing some things leak out in terms of trades and stuff and people with contract stuff. On to hockey, though. The NHL season is sadly over, but the good thing is, as we talked about earlier, the Avalanche won the cup and Tampa Bay did not.
Yep. No three-peat. Cool. No 4 straight for Patrick Maroon, which I love. That's always nice to see.
Asterisk run. Yep. Asterisk run.
Maybe. Yep. There was
dynasty.
There was a bubble title in there. Everyone craps on the Lakers bubble title. We crap on Tampa Bay's. Who knows?
I don't know. People are talking. No, we're not going to get in this whole asterisk BS.
No.
But I don't know. It's not the craziest discussion for people to have.
There's the manipulation of the cap too. There's a lot of like funky kind of, I don't know what word you want to use here. Like, again, coincidences maybe, but some things, some head scratchers, some question marks you could allude to, like we said.
Certainly. But Colorado wins in 6. I had Tampa in 6, so reverse jinx. Cale Makar, at 23 years old, remarkably so,
has
already won the Conn Smythe, the Hobey Baker, and the Norris.
And a Stanley Cup.
Only one ever. And a Stanley Cup, just to cap it all off.
Yep. Just in case you forgot.
Only defenseman ever. Only player ever. Just ridiculous. He's he's out of this world. He's already locked up. They don't have to worry about this being like his payday year and he'd get like 11 and a half, 12 million maybe. He took a pay cut, more than he could have gotten when he signed it. And, they've got a mantra there where, people take a little bit less than they're worth to make it all work. So McKinnon's currently on very cheap money until he expires. Landeskog are pretty reasonable money. They make it work. My one of my first favorite hockey players of all time, Burnaby Joe Sakic, now has a cup as a player and a GM. So congrats to him. Love Joe
Very
Sakic.
nice. Yep.
Once the worst team in the league about 5 years ago. Now they're Stanley Cup champions. Shows that patience and trust in your group can pay off, because it certainly did. They were a wagon this year. And it's nice, to see a team that's a wagon win, because there's the President's Trophy curse people believe in, in sports, the best team that dominates. There's usually one that stands out ahead of the pack in any sport. They don't always win. But this year, the team that dominated the large majority of the regular season lost 4 playoff games out of 20. They win, and that's just nice. It's nice to see it. It kind of feels like poetry. Big thing for the Lightning. I mean, of course, not 23 in a row is big, but they never got Braden Point back. That definitely ended up hurting him. I don't know how Braden Point would have looked, but it just got to a point where it really did come down to hurt them, because it's just a tough player to not have in the mix. So, yeah, they'll do what they got to do in the offseason to make sure he's ready to go for next year. But tough loss for them. Corey Perry loses 3 straight cup finals. I would feel worse for him if A, he wasn't a shithead on the ice.
Yeah.
And B, didn't win a cup in 2007 with the Ducks. So he's got a cup. It's fine. And I know seeing his wife and I think his daughter was there, like, emotional, that stinks. But it's whatever. The guy's, he's called the Worm for a reason. He plays like a worm. Nikita Kucherov just dogged it. That is pretty.
Yeah,
brutal.
I wanted to hear your thoughts on this, because I was flipping back and forth watching it. I only saw the replay of it on Twitter, him going at it with was it an equipment guy on the bench? I saw him whipping his gloves or whatever it was. Just
stick or smashing something on the dasher. It's 1:25 left. I think it was right around Colorado dumped it. And
so the play was going on too, right? Yeah.
It wasn't icing, so they had to rush back and get the play going. And Kucherov says, "Nah, fuck it. I'm just gonna go dog it and get pissed off." Onto the ice, could have got off the ice, went down the tunnel, I don't know, maybe screamed or something,
smashed a stick or something. Yeah,
like
the usual thing guys do. Yeah,
on the ice, your season is almost over, and you're screwing your team over.
Quite literally on the line,
3 championships in a row on the line too. That doesn't just go away. That's in the back of your mind a little bit. It's like, come on, dude. It's just the frustration getting too much of a hold of him. Pat Maroon was subject to this. I'm drawing a blank on whose goal it was, McKinnon's or Lekkonen's, but he
first goal for Colorado,
Josh
right?
Manson. Yeah, it was McKinnon's goal. Slashes Josh Manson, breaks his stick, could have seriously hurt Manson.
Nope.
If I were the NHL, I'd suspend him into next season. That's a really dumb intent to injure type of play, but they're not doing it because they're stupid. So it's the playoffs, so they're like, "No, we're not going to do it."
Season's over, so we don't care anymore.
Just dumb. Darcy Kemper heading into a UFA year, potentially played his last game as a member of the Avalanche. We'll see what happens with him. He could cash out somewhere else. They could make it a priority to keep him around. That'll be interesting. But a guy that I've said in the past, I forget exactly what season off the top of my head, guy that could have won the Vezina one year if his team didn't deal with so many injuries and shit around him. There was one year where he was very good, and Colorado and Arizona and Boston had the most total man games lost due to injury all year. And I think it's, his team had better fortunes. He might have won the Vezina when he was back in Arizona. He's been a pretty good goalie under the radar a little bit at times for a while, and it was really cool to see. He battled the eye injury when he took the stick to the face inadvertently. I forget whose stick it was. The guy that battled, and it's huge for him in the UFA year, whether he gets paid with Colorado or someone else. He proved, that he can take a team to a cup and win, and pretty cool to see. Eric Johnson finally gets a cup. First of his career, he was super emotional, rightfully so. Darren Helm gets his first in 14 years, I believe it was. He won back with the Red Wings back in the day when he was much younger. I'm pretty sure he scored a big goal in that cup final too, if I'm not mistaken. He scored a couple big ones throughout the playoffs. Andrew Cogliano, they get him at the deadline. He wins his first. Guy's played over 1,100 games in the league. It's like 35, I think, gets his first. Really cool. It's just a really easy team to root for. Really, really easy team to root for. I even root for Nazem Kadri.
I was going to say, we talked about that before.
Star.
Yeah. Yep.
What a rock star he's become. What a heel heel turn. I don't know if that's the right word.
I think, yeah. Done.
Yep. He's easy to root for now. He played, I assume his thumb wasn't fully healed when he came back. He scored that game winner in game 5 in overtime with practically one hand. He was just going nuts in the celebration. He had some cool moments with his mom and dad on the ice. He's the first Muslim hockey player to ever win the Stanley Cup, which is really cool.
That's a cool moment.
He takes a lot of pride in that, being a part of history and potential future Muslim star hockey players, just hockey players in general in the league. He's kind of paving the way for them, which is really cool. It's just such an easy team to root for. Joe Sakic, Jared Bednar, a guy who's coached at all 3 levels, ECHL, AHL, and NHL. Won I think it's the Kelly Cup in the ECHL a few years ago. Now he wins the Stanley Cup all these years later. I think it was 2009 with the South Carolina Stingrays. He's been battling to, be a successful NHL coach for a while, and to see it pay off for him is really cool. There's really just nothing to dislike about this team. I can't think of one thing.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything.
I really can't. Jack Johnson wins his first, a guy that's kind of become a meme in the community. He's pretty bad. He's not very good, but a guy that has had a tough career with, criticism. His family freaking took advantage of his money way back and just pretty much I don't know if embezzled is the right word, but took advantage.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Millions of dollars from him.
Yep.
That's had a tumultuous career at times. And to see him win was pretty cool. They brought him in on a PTO to start the season. He earns a contract and plays a decent role. He's not going to be a showstopper, but he's good depth for them and filled in fairly adequately. He wasn't making these crazy bad mistakes or anything in the playoffs, and gets a cup out of it. He's a good complimentary piece for cheap. Sometimes you need those types of guys, and I assume he's a pretty big piece of the locker room as a veteran. Awesome team, so easy to root for. Injury news: the injury stuff kind of pours out. Nichushkin had this big, a big bruise, I think a broken bone or two in his foot, that he was on a cart, a dolly, being transported around the rink after because he could walk on it. He was playing through that. I'm sure the Avalanche had some other injuries, but haven't seen tons of details about that. The Lightning, Braden Point had a significant tear in his quad. We recovered in a few weeks, but I imagine there might be other stuff going on there too. I mean, he hasn't played in so long. I feel like it's got to be a little bit more than a significant tear in the quad, but I don't know. I'm not the doctor.
Oh, I heard their head coach on the post game talk about. I think he said basically he shouldn't play hockey again until the season starts up. That's how bad. He didn't obviously go into any in depth or anything like that, but I think that's basically what he said. Is this guy should not be doing any physical activities for a couple of months now.
The John Cooper interview with Kevin Weeks was really interesting. It got really deep and emotional, very candid. The team went through a lot, and he reiterates how proud he is of the group, but they went through a lot, and it was a really cool interview. I don't know if it's on YouTube or anything, but it was a different type of interview. It had a very different feel to it.
Had a philosophical type of vibe to it.
It really did. Belmar, meniscus injury. Cirelli had an AC joint sprain. We'll need surgery on that. One of Ryan McDonough's fingers was mangled, and Kucherov had a meniscus injury, which might have been stemming from the hit he took from Devon Toews in game 3 or 4. Might have not been, might have re-aggravated it. It was a previous issue. I don't know, but maybe that's part of the reason he was frustrated too, because he was playing
maybe.
And then, they're struggling to get momentum going and keep their season alive. And he's just fuck this. He couldn't hold it in and just had kind of a meltdown there in front of his bench with less than a minute 30 seconds left. Not how
all the play is going on. Yeah.
It's a heat of the moment type thing. What can I say? It's got to be a hard thing to swallow, especially when you're going for 3 in a row. I mean, that's just an insane accomplishment that they will not get to achieve. So that's got to sting. Overarching thoughts for you about anything Cup final related, Avalanche, shenanigans related after the fact and all that stuff. Your thoughts?
I just think it just can't give enough praise to Colorado. We've talked about this before, made the joke that watching just the Western Conference playoffs as a whole, that side of the bracket, and then just this finals of watching these two teams play, it's you got to wonder if the Bruins play the same sport. Again, I know we've made that joke time and time again, just how fast and just electric as a whole Colorado plays. As you mentioned it when we started this, Cale Makar is going to be an absolute rock star in this league for years to come, which is what he's accomplished and obviously what he's still going to be capable of doing at such a young age. And like you mentioned, guys making not, dirt cheap money, but, kind of, maybe doing it. I don't know if like doing it the right way is the right word. I mean, guys taking pay cuts to keep things together. Like you mentioned, Eric Johnson being there as long as he's been, through the crap that they've had to go through of being, I think it was 2 years, right? They were like the worst team in hockey or pretty close to it. I know you said one of them.
Like they were at least close the other year.
Yeah. So bottom of the barrel.
They won like 22 games.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, being able just to stick that out and obviously get paid off in the end, finally, like that's just like you said, there's plenty of storylines. You've said it numerous times. Like there really wasn't one thing on this team that you could really hate on them for, because they kind of went about, everything they did, just did it the right way, which was nice to see. And like you mentioned, it's good to see. I feel like hockey, you probably, to see the best team in the league. I feel like it's out of all four. Yeah.
Stars winning, or whether it was them or like Edmonton pulling it off. It's good to see the Stars come to the forefront. Like McKinnon scores a big goal in the final game. Makar was just Makar, and it's a star-studded team that deserved to win and did it. So
absolutely. But yeah, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to say. Just like I feel like hockey is the type of sport where maybe you don't see the best team win it, because obviously the NHL playoffs it's the playoffs with the most parity. Anything can happen. Like shit, you saw last year the Montreal Canadiens go all the way to the Stanley Cup final like that, and now it's a team that finishes as one of the worst teams in hockey. So like it was just nice to see, like you mentioned, the top team in the league finally, get their dues and come out on top in the end.
What we're saying is now Tampa is going to pull Montreal, be the worst team in the league,
go to the bottom
and get Connor Bedard. That's what we're saying. That probably just
is how it works.
Anyone listening, potential nightmares. I'm sorry in advance if that happens, but that would give me nightmares too. God damn. But we don't have to worry about that. But we have to segue to some bad hockey news.
Some things we have to worry about. Yeah. Good segue. Nice job.
Don Sweeney finally got the multi-year contract extension from the Bruins.
They couldn't pull like
for them to finally just fucking announce they did it.
They couldn't just pull a Chara and a Bergeron and be like, yeah, we'll give you year to year, see how it goes, ask you how you feel at the end of the season if you want to come back. Like, and again, like, hey, kind of called it as soon as the Stanley Cup Finals ends. It was a day later, but the Bruins were like, oh, hey, by the way, we'll slide this under the table. We re-signed Don Sweeney. Get excited, everybody. Still don't have a head coach. Free agency is a couple weeks away. Still don't have a head coach. Don't know what we're doing. Like
fucking baloney.
The list is growing by the minute, it seems like. It was 2 the other day. Now I think it's up to like 5 or 6 names out of nowhere. So
yeah, there's conflicting stuff. Not conflicting like people proving each other wrong or anything, but like there's a lot of different names.
There's shit coming from everywhere, because that's how the Bruins seem to operate, which is very frustrating. And this circus of an offseason just never wants to cease itself.
Yeah, they're really just making themselves look like more of a laughing stock. Quote was from the Bruins: "We are proud to extend Don Sweeney to a multi-year contract as general manager of the Boston Bruins." You have this underlined because you want to get to it a little.
Yeah, it's kind of pissed me off.
Set the stage a little bit for the rest of our Sweeney talk throughout this. Under his management, the Boston Bruins have been one of the winningest franchises in the league and a perennial playoff contender year in and year out. Before you say anything, I'll say this. That's what the Jacobs want. They want a perennial playoff contender. That's it.
It's not a team that goes over the top, or just we're kind of here every. I think that sums up perfectly. But yeah, I mean, I had 2 problems with just that comment alone. Again, it's just filler crap from, like you said, from the Jacobs family. The Bruins have to put stuff out like this. Sorry, I'm distracted. There's benches are clearing in the Red Sox and Blue Jays game for some reason.
Whoa.
Yeah. Pavetta and Vladdy Guerrero, I think, are yelling back and forth. Maybe the benches didn't clear, but Guerrero and Pavetta, they did clear. I don't know what's going on. I have it on mute. Pavetta hit somebody, but I don't know what happened.
I saw the Blake Snell thing with Bryce Harper was interesting.
Yeah, that and then I was going to say maybe the Mariners and Angels type of brawl.
Yeah, that was
guys are getting suspended, and Archie Bradley broke his arm during it. I think that was kind of wild. Yeah. No, but back on the Bruins stuff as I get sidetracked here. The comment, like you mentioned, that I have underlined, because there's a couple of things that piss me off about it. Just the winningest franchises comment in the quote. Like I don't know if I necessarily think of the GM obviously is part of building the team, but like it's about the players and the coaches, or the coaches coaching the players for the most part. When I think of the winningest franchises. Like the GM's kind of the backseat driver type of thing, where like he's off in the distance doing his own thing. So I don't know how much you put on the GM when it comes to talking about winningest franchises. I know when they talk about, the Bulls back in the day, you talk about Jordan and Pippen and why is the head coach? I'm drawing a blank now. This is not helping Steve Kerr was on that team. Head coach Phil Jackson. I don't know why I couldn't think of Phil Jackson's name. You think of them more than you think of, I can't even think of the GM and the owner that put those Bulls teams together, because that's part of my point. And then the second one, just if Don Sweeney's job is safe, like you said, for having the Bruins be one of the winningest franchises league in and league out, why wasn't Bruce Cassidy's job safe? I feel like Bruce Cassidy had just as much to do with them being
the answer.
We do it. It's a scapegoat type of thing, and the guy gets thrown under the bus. But it's just more. It's the Bruins, and then, like you said, the Jacobs. Exactly. More fluff. More. I was going to take a meaner route and say just spewing.
Fluff that you
not the kind you put on sandwiches. Yeah. Not the enjoyable fluff that people like. No, I was just going to say it's just spewing more crap that people don't want to hear and can see right through, and that's just what's been so frustrating about this team year after year. It's just keep feeding the fans bullshit and thinking they're gonna.
It's the irony too. We're one of the most winning franchises every year. Yeah, and now you're doing this clown shit. Yeah. Like, fuck you, honestly. Are you though? Like,
again though, like, what are you taking to consider of winning as franchises? Like, that's cool that you're winning all these regular season games, like you said.
We went to the Cup Finals and lost, so we're a winning franchise, and we did it in 2013 too.
Went to the Cup Finals and blew it. Like,
you can't call yourself one of the most winningest franchises unless you've won a Stanley Cup at the very least.
Tampa Bay has become one of the most winningest franchises. Like,
it requires context. Like, it requires
Pittsburgh.
Context. There's a lower
Chicago.
level. Like, you could say like, oh, we've been in the playoffs, like we've been in the mix. Saying you're one of the winningest franchises, sure, you win a good amount of
exactly. You win in the regular season. That's all you do.
Yeah, it's just you can look at it different ways. It's not like worth being a stickler about, but there's different ways you can look at it. Is the point we're trying to make here.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean I'm glad they just did it though, so I don't have to be like, where the fuck is this inevitable contract extension?
Still waiting. We're sitting here. Yep.
And we still don't have a coach. But
that was the aggravating
potential 1-year deal for Bergeron that they're going to discuss when he gets back from vacation, if that already happened, because Bergeron, I assume, just enjoying some time with the family and maybe
time away from the madness,
talking it over with his wife here and there on their vacation, and just relaxing, maybe having a few cold ones here and there, sitting by the beach or something. So
waiting for the inevitable to come back to this mess. The whole putting it off though, really quick. Just again, again, like, I feel like it's like thinking the fans were stupid. Like, everyone knew this was coming. Yeah. So we were all, it's the same. I think you and I echo the same thought here. Just like, get it over with already. What are we waiting for? Like, you fired the head coach 3 weeks. Exactly. Like, it's anything to try to steal the momentum and the headlines back towards the Bruins, which didn't work out. Because again, nobody cares that you brought back this GM.
Now they got ratioed hard on the tweet. Like, just like 99% negative shit. Like, I see people throwing this storyline out too. Like, have you ever seen something more universally hated in Boston?
No, I was thinking the same thing. I saw that.
I'm not even just saying that for recency bias. Like, I've racked my brain a little bit. I can't think of anything more hated than this.
No,
it's different. It's different if Bruce is here.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. But you canned him wrongfully. Yep.
I was in the camp for so many years. Sweeney isn't the best, but he's made some good moves to put this team together. But when you handle things so poorly the way they have, you lose a lot of respect from him.
Absolutely. He's been able to save
tons of people.
Yeah. He's been able to save face in the past. This time you can't.
Loyal fans.
Yep. Can't save face now. He's been able to do it in the past, like you said, with some of the moves he's been able to make up, and some of the cheaper extensions, like the McAvoys and the Pasternaks, that keep fans happy for the time being. And again, the trades that come through, like the Hall move and the Coyle move, like those in the moment, those are like good moves.
Which won't happen. You win the cup.
That's a long time coming.
People still think about this whole fiasco, but if you win the cup, it makes it a little more palpable.
Yep. It's just, you can sweep this under the rug a little bit.
Yeah, there's no fully sweeping this under the rug. You can do it a little bit, but
can't run from this shitstorm.
Are you all right? It just told me I got signed out of Zoom, but good. I'm still here. So
We're still recording, so that's
Who's
good.
Who's logging into the Full Press Zoom? Damn it, we're recording.
What is going on?
It's okay though. As long as the Zoom doesn't crash, that would not be okay.
No, it would not be good.
That would be really bad. On to other things though, because we've talked enough about Don Sweeney. Even though his name will probably come up in this upcoming discussion. Coaching and potential trade updates. We're slowly getting more clarity on the coaching side of things at 9 a.m. Elliot Friedman this morning said a couple of other notes to keep an eye on. Sounds like things are intensifying on the Kevin Fiala front. We got a trade in that front as well. And we could get some clarity on the Boston coaching situation today. People were joking like, oh, Kevin Fiala is going to coach the Bruins. Honestly, take that over David Quinn. Just kidding, but like kind of not. They have been linked recently by Friedman on 32 Thoughts, I believe it was, to Jeff Halpern and Derek Lalonde from Tampa. Now that Tampa season's over, Lalonde is apparently heavily in the mix for Detroit's job, so that's might be where he ends up. Something to monitor there. Stevie Y wants one of his guys. I've been talking about that for a couple weeks. It makes a lot of sense. But yeah, it looks like the Bruins will try to get in the mix on one, if not both of those guys. I would prefer of any of the candidates to get one of those guys, take one of John Cooper's disciples away and see if he can lead the Bruins into the future. Halpern or Lalonde, doesn't matter to me. I would just like one of them preferably. But as we clued out earlier, there are a lot of names in the mix. Joe McDonald, who reported the Bergeron news that I'm sure we will get in the coming weeks or two. That was poor English, but you know what I'm saying.
I gotcha. Yep.
The Bergeron 1-year extension, which we'll see what the details look like. Could be incentive laden and low towards the cap. We'll see. Joe McDonald said he has heard that they have interviewed Penguins assistant coach Mike Vellucci, who I didn't know existed until I saw that tweet.
All right.
I don't know who this guy
not
is.
Off to a good start then.
But no, it's not even that. It's just like not really familiar with their assistant coaches is my point. But like I already like him better than Dave Quinn.
All right, fair enough. You know nothing about him, and he's higher up on the list than a guy that we have seen in the past and know a little bit more about.
Yeah, he's doing solid things with the Penguins. I'll be willing to give him a shot. I like to learn more about him though, for sure.
Okay.
Sounds like according to Frank Saravalli, Quinn, Vellucci, and Jay Leach are the top three. Would prefer Vellucci or Leach.
Yep.
Look, this isn't to say Dave Quinn couldn't resurrect his coaching career here, but I'm in the camp a lot of people have seen, I'm sure on Twitter, of Ty Anderson from the Sports Hub. Like, it's an unimaginative hire. It's a local guy who's got ties to a couple players in your team, the U.S. program, BU, whatever.
That's why they're going to do it.
And that's why they're going to do it.
That's exactly why we talked about this before. They're turning into the Canadians.
It's funny because David Quinn, his way out of the Rangers was around the time and in this same, time frame of a whole organizational overhaul that has worked out pretty well, in present day with the Rangers. He did not really get through to young players while he was there. Philip Hedl, who's turned out pretty well. Capo Caco, not very good. Alexis Lafreniere wasn't there at the time, to my knowledge, unless I'm mistaken.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think it was after the fact.
He didn't really get through to young players. And then you have the issue here of Cassidy having trouble with young players and certain players. Like, what makes you think that's going to be different?
Yeah, why would you want more of the same?
They mainly fired Cassidy because he's the scapegoat. Who knows how much the young player thing really factored in, but we have to imagine it had some
very minuscule
in there. Scott Sandelin. I saw Scott Sandelin linked to the Bruins and I got excited, but according to the Herald, Steve Conroy, he got an interview, but is potentially an information gathering candidate. So yeah, maybe this is to do some scouting for Scott Sandelin if he ever wants to jump from Minnesota to the NHL. He's one of the best college coaches out there, one of the best college coaches of the past decade or so. I would love Scott Sandelin. He's got international experience like David Quinn, but he's coached with the World Juniors a bit, and he's had a lot of success in Minnesota Duluth. Tournament runs, championships. I like him. I like his demeanor. I like how he does things, but it doesn't sound like it's happening, but he might be in the mix, and I like that. Jim Montgomery in the mix in some way. We don't even know what's going on with Jim Montgomery at this point. Could be in the mix, could not be. Kind of seems like he's becoming more of like a mystery on his status, but he's been in the mix, so we can say that for sure. Matt Porter kind of sums things up pretty good. He said, "Cam report: the Bruins opened this week with a group of 7 candidates for head coach. He listed in alphabetical order: Spencer Carberry, Greg Cronin, Jay Leach, Jim Montgomery, David Quinn, Joe Sacco, and Mike Vellucci. Spencer Carberry, we talked about, former Providence Bruins assistant, currently with the Leafs, controlling the power play. Greg Cronin, the head coach of the Colorado Eagles, pretty good AHL team. Obviously the affiliate of the Colorado Avalanche. So that's interesting now. Mm-hmm. I imagine his name popped up because their season ended, even though he was down in the minors. With the Eagles, Jay Leach, we know Jay Leach. Jim Montgomery, know him. David Quinn, Joe Sacco, we know them. And then Vellucci came into the mix today. I am in the camp still. I like Carberry a lot. I like Cronin if they feel like he can work. Ironically enough, Cronin makes his way into the mix. Guess where he's from? Right somewhere, here in Massachusetts.
I was going to say somewhere around the state of Massachusetts.
Right here in Massachusetts.
He probably grew up like 20 minutes from Boston, went to the Garden all the time.
Like the Don Sweeney jersey hanging up on his wall, dude.
He loved Bobby Orr.
Don Sweeney's uncle was best friends with his 4th cousin. Like,
this team is getting so difficult to root for. Like I said it earlier, because this type of approach has worked so well for the Canadians. Again, that we've joked about them only wanting to hire French guys and like people that speak the language. That's working great for that team. They've been garbage. I mean, they went to a cup final, obviously, but again, same result the Bruins had the last time they went to a cup final.
No, do not compare them.
I'll just say it's a loss. Like different ways to do it, but it's a loss regardless. So yeah, let's just, like you said, let's just jump on all the guys that are from, just again, 20 minutes outside of Boston, get those guys, that they hung out at this, liquor store and, drank at this bar, like just bunch of bullshit that nobody wants to hear or listen to. Like, I feel like Felger discussing like, do your, he's from Boston on your own time bit, but like, it sucks. It's ridiculous. Like, that's why it's going to be, I don't know if you're going to ask me which one of these guys I prefer, because I don't know a lot about him, but it's going to be David Quinn. Like, it's so obvious. It's not even funny anymore.
The thing too, Mikey Grinelli from Spin Chicklets throws out scoops every once in a while.
Okay.
When he throws them out or throws out a GIF with like an eye emoji, it always leads to something being correct.
Oh no.
And he threw out David Quinn with an eyes emoji earlier today. And that tells me, it's not set in stone yet. And I imagine at this point, it's not set in stone. They, if they plan on making him the head coach, it's not all ironed out yet.
Mm-hmm.
But Grinelli doesn't just throw these around. He doesn't just throw these around. And I hate it. 11 hours ago, eyes emoji with David Quinn celebrating. They said #rumor boys hearing David Quinn may be hired as the Bees coach today. So it's a maybe, but I don't know if he's tweeting it out.
So that'll drop
like
it like
Mckenzie or like a Pierre LeBrun. That's not to disrespect him, but he throws things out every once in a while and they end up being true. So tells me from him and other sources that Dave Quinn is firmly in the mix, if not the number one front runner. And I don't like that. I think they can do better. Can Dave Quinn do good here? They
definitely can do better.
Absolutely. He can do good here. I have belief in that. Am I optimistic about it? No. Is it possible? Yes. Am I going to be upset if they hire him? Yes.
Can I talk myself into liking the move? No.
Man. And he's also a BU guy. I'm a BC guy. Like, that's not really a huge thing, but it's just
to add on to the nitpicky. Like,
I'm so underwhelmed by all of this and disappointed. And like, it's embarrassing to see a team, like, even if it weren't the Bruins, like a team I've grown up supporting, like they're just handling things in such a botched bullshit fucking way. Like, it's just stupid. It's a team that's, been a contender for so long. There's so much history, and they're throwing parts of their fan base and the respect they have from other teams and around the league. It's just a smack in the face. You're throwing shit in the toilet and flushing it. You're flushing it. It sucks. This is so brutal. Just please give me Leach or Vellucci or any of those other candidates.
With the Gramelli stuff, when do you think? because like you said, he tends to be right about a lot of this stuff. So what are we thinking? Like 11:52 tonight, a weirdo ass time when everyone's in bed. They'll be like, "Hey, we hired David Quinn. Let's get psyched." Like,
hey, David Quinn is gonna fucking change this team. He's gonna change the culture. We needed a new voice when we got it. We needed a new voice.
Need Zoe in here for his
David Quinn's got local ties. He's from Cranston, Rhode Island, and he coached at BU for a little while. That didn't work out. He coached at the Rangers. That didn't work out. So it made him a perfect candidate. He can't mix with us. We just couldn't. Two
things didn't work out, so he's the best guy for the job.
We couldn't pass up on the opportunity to bring David Quinn into our.
That makes sense to me.
And then he'll get drilled with questions. Oh, why David Quinn? Why not these guys? Be like, oh, I don't know. I didn't even hire David Quinn. I just took the inspiration from Cam Neely. He's such a good executive, like he was a good hockey player, and he's my best friend. And fuck this.
It's in my contract. I can't say anything bad about him.
This is
horrible. Well, to your point too, you mentioned, I think, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but you said like can you think he'd do a good job here? And you said yes. Yeah, he could do he could possibly do a good job here, but then that falls back on, the talent and what's he given to try to do good with. Do you trust Don Sweeney to put a competent team for him to coach? Which no, I don't. So again, it falls back on the Bruce Cassidy thing of like, he's going to be the guy that takes all the blame when it's not really his fault.
It makes more sense to go for a younger guy with some appealing qualities that it's probably not going to go good the first year, but you're better off keeping that coach, whoever it may be, Carberry or Jay Leach, around than David Quinn, who hasn't proven anything. Give a guy like Carberry or Leach that first big opportunity and see how they run with it. Leach has familiarity. He's got respect to these young guys. I imagine Jake DeBrusk, to my knowledge, still has a good relationship with Jay Leach. Never heard anything about bad things there. He was a great coach when he was there. Spencer Carberry is thought of as one of those young enterprising minds who could be next up as a big time facing someone's coaching staff. You take him away from a top tier Toronto power play. He turned that power play into something pretty spectacular this year. It was a huge reason, that power play was a huge reason Austin Matthews even reached 60 goals. Like, he did pretty amazing things with that power play. Why not bring him in? You have some familiarity. He's obviously got interest in the position. Why are you going with a lame duck guy who has underachieved in multiple roles? I don't get it.
That's how they operate.
I don't get it. I do get it, and I don't get it. But the reasons I don't get it trump the reasons I do understand it. Because they want to give him another chance. He's local. All the spiel.
He's local.
BU. He's local.
He's my guy.
He's my guy.
We were friends growing up.
We used to have peanut butter and jellies on Wednesday at school.
Your Don Sweeney's morphing into a John Henry type of
kind of, yeah. Like,
old and don't know what's going on. The thing too, I wonder about. I don't know how I mean, obviously coaching matters in hockey, but like how much like a first year like young guy like you mentioned would be good for like a free agent looking to sign with a team to be like, hey, that guy, he's new here, or he's new in the league. He looks like he's hungry, obviously, to put his foot in the league and do well, as opposed to a guy like David Quinn, who a free agent could look at and be like, this guy kind of
play for this guy, like
kind of stunk when he was with the Rangers. What the hell is he going to be like a second go around? So I don't want anything to do with this team. Like I'm curious if that kind of happens. I feel like in other leagues like basketball, I feel like is more so the league that kind of comes up in. And even baseball to some degree. I mean, you saw it with the Red Sox and Cora, and they talked about, a young manager and stuff like that. But I wonder if a young coach, would get that same type of draw to him than a guy, like I said, that's just a retread of something that hasn't worked in the past, like you mentioned.
It sucks, man. I mean, we pretty much covered the majority of things on that front. So trade stuff. We talked about Kevin Fiala. I reverse jinxed again.
On fire with those tonight.
My whole thing with Fiala, it's been kind of known that he was going to be moved at some point for a few months now. I was expecting Ottawa, New Jersey, or Buffalo, teams that could give up good assets, teams that have plenty of cap space, teams that are not in the Western Conference. And, Ottawa was rumored to be willing to give up the 7th overall pick and a deal for Kevin Fiala, but apparently something didn't work out there. I imagine that Minnesota liked the idea of getting Brock Faber, and they did. Brock Faber is a prize stud right shot defenseman prospect. Currently at the University of Minnesota, going to play another year there. Looks to be a stud for a team now in Minnesota that only has one real good right shot deep prospect in Kalen Addison, who's with the team. Matt Dumba probably doesn't have a huge future with them as a right shot D. They'll either trade him this offseason or at the deadline if they're bad, which I don't see, or he'll walk in free agency next year. So I don't think he's got a long-term future. Now you've got two really good young defensemen on the right side in Faber and Addison. I really like that pickup. They could even add another one if they wanted to, because they got the 19th overall pick as well from LA. So they can do whatever they want with that pick. If they want to add another defenseman or add up front. They won't be adding a goalie because they drafted a goalie in the first round a year ago in Jesper Wallstedt. And, there just aren't any first round caliber goalies this year. So that's not an option. Yeah, so Kevin Fiala goes to LA, signs a 7-year extension for $7.875 per. And he's a member of the LA Kings. They love left-handed forwards. I think like 10 of their projected 12 forwards next year right now are left-handed. Kind of weird. I noticed that looking at their roster earlier a little bit after the trade. But yeah, I mean, Minnesota's got the 19th and 24th overall picks now, so they get some good capital to work with. They got those buyouts kicking in from Suter and Parise at like 13 something million or something crazy. So they got to shed some salary to accommodate that and stay under the cap next year. So I like the trade for both sides. I think LA's been looking for a scoring winger on the top line for like a year and a half now, and they get it. Kevin Fiala, 7 years locked up, good player. Apparently some character concerns. He's got a bit of an ego a little bit at times. This is his third team now in a young career. I think he's 25, but he's really good. He had 85 points this year. He's not a guy that seems to rely on his line mates super religiously. From what I can gather, he's a guy that can drive his own offense and score. So I think he'll fit in. Potentially playing with like Alex Iafallo or Anze Kopitar, be a pretty good line. I think they got options in LA. I like this trade. And for the 19th overall pick, they have a stacked prospect core. They can afford to give up a first-round pick for a guy who could score 80-plus points for them next year. But giving up Brock Faber hurts. I have to imagine that is why Minnesota wanted to send him to LA, even though they're in the same conference. Brock Faber's a stud, and getting him is huge for Minnesota for the future. I'm surprised that LA gave him up, to be honest, because even though they have Drew Doughty and Brian Clark, there's a couple good star right defensemen. Matt Roy, pretty solid as well. Brock Faber looks like a surefire top 4 defenseman, pretty solid one at that at the NHL level someday. So pretty interesting trade, but honestly, there's positives for both sides. I don't think any team really fleeced the other here, although, some people seem to believe that. But I think it's pretty fair for both sides, but we'll see what happens on the road with what they do with the pick and how Brock Faber pans out and how Fiala, of course, does in LA. Another top forward that could be on the market. Apparently, the Rangers have been in talks with Winnipeg for Pierre-Luc Dubois per RDS. I don't know what RDS stands for, but that's from NRD, NHL Rumors Daily on Twitter. NRD, a pretty good source. So interesting to see if the Winnipeg Jets make a run at Pierre-Luc Dubois, or the Rangers make a run at Pierre-Luc Dubois. That'd be pretty interesting. Something to monitor. You have any thoughts on the trade by chance, or no?
Not really. Didn't know a lot about anything that was going on, but
gotcha.
Not a ton, no.
Yep, but next up on the agenda, Bob Mckenzie released his final 2022 draft rankings, which are looked at pretty religiously by teams. Once those comes out, and every edition he does throughout the year, he has Uri Slafkovsky, the guy we've talked about a little bit, the big winger at number 1 instead of Shane Wright, which surprised a lot of people. You don't see Bob Mckenzie do this very often. The Bob father, Bobby Margarita. Very interesting to see because there are differing opinions on Slafkovsky. Not going to get into it a ton, but you got Slafkovsky at 1, Shane Wright at 2, Logan Cooley at 3, Simon Nemec at 4, and Cutter Gauthier, future BC Eagle. Very excited to watch him next year at 5. We got a stud at 5 because BC needs it right now. Pretty interesting, pretty reasonable looking top 10. I'll read the rest of it. David Jiricek at 7, Joakim Kamel at Jiricek at 6, Joakim Kamel at 7, Jonathan Lekaramaki at 8, Matthew Savoy at 9, and Marco Kasper at 10. Pretty reasonable, nothing too crazy. Besides really the Slafkovsky and Wright at the top, with them being flipped and not Shane Wright at the top. Just some other notes. Mildly surprised to see Frank Nazar at 15. I would have expected him a little bit higher. I think he could go in the top 10. Brad Lambert clocks in at 16, the most divisive prospect in the draft. People have questions of whether he can get into the inside a lot if he's a perimeter skater, but the guy's got great hands and exceptional skating ability. There are some tools. If somebody drafts him and develops him right, he could be a star player. So it'll be interesting to see who takes him or if he falls to the second round, because that's certainly possible. But if I'm a team with multiple picks and he's available in the right situation, I would consider taking him because you could turn him into a star. The traits are there. I was surprised to see Denton Matejchuk and Ryan Chesley at 24 and 25 personally. I think Matejchuk's stock has been rising as a puck-moving, puck distributor. Really just talented offensive defenseman with some great appealing skills in the modern day for a modern defenseman that we've seen, the trend kind of go towards. Ryan Chesley, kind of the opposite though, more of like a stay-at-home, not a huge offense guy, but kind of stay-at-home shot blocker. I've seen him compared to Ryan McDonough, so if that puts things into perspective a little bit. I would have expected to see Matejchuk at least in the top 20, maybe Chesley a little higher than 25. Tristan Leno at 32. Interesting to see him in the top 32, given his stock fluctuating a little bit. Jagger Firkus, the best name in the draft.
The hell of a name, yeah.
He's like 5'8", 150, though. He's tiny. Oof. And size, you can say what you want about players. There are some people around the combine he was at that are a little concerned. He looks like very, very skinny. And there are signs, people like size doesn't really matter. You can turn these guys into good players. Like Victor Robinson's a smaller guy. That's good. Johnny Gaudreau, Alex DeBrincat. Mm-hmm. There's ways to do it. Patrick Kane's even smaller. He's one of the best players of our lifetime. But yeah, there are concerns. If I had to guess, he'll be like DeBrincat. He'll fall out of the first round and go early second. But yeah, Jagger Firkus, very good goal scorer, very, some appealing, exciting, electric offensive skills there. He ranks at 34. Could see him being the DeBrincat this year of the draft. Maverick Lamoureux, another crazy name.
A good name.
He's 6'7". He's ginormous. And he was at the NHL Combine as well. Drew some heads there. Yeah, he's just ginormous. Got a cool name. He clocks in at 44. Potential Bruins based off the options in Mackenzie's rankings around 54. Ty Nelson, right shot defenseman. I like him. Seamus Casey, my favorite player in the draft. I think he's awesome. I think he's incredibly intelligent. And I think he would make a great potential second pairing defenseman on the right side behind Charlie McAvoy someday, maybe bump Carlo down, but I'm thinking very far ahead. He's my favorite player in the draft. I've been seeing video of him for the past few years now, and I love his skill set. I think he's got a real good eye for being a good puck-moving defenseman, finding offensive lanes and making plays happen at a high level. I like it. I think he could develop really nicely at Michigan for probably like the next 2 seasons or so. Elias Hellemonson, another player, right shot defenseman with some good tools. I like him. Adam Ingram, he's a center from the USHL. They like to draft from the USHL. I can see them taking him. Gleb Trikazov, someone who is thought of by some people to be a top 10 talent, but he's got some varying stock for a multitude of reasons I don't know all about, but he's a guy with an electric shot, maybe the best in the draft. If he's available at 54, I think you have to bet on the upside because he is a guy that could score goals like it's nobody's business if he develops properly. And his name is Gleb. That's pretty funny.
A lot of weird names in this draft.
Yeah. I like him. I think he's an interesting prospect, maybe the most interesting in the draft. He's a really interesting player, but the scoring upside is very apparent. Paul Ludwinski is another one. He really came along for Kingston in their playoff run on the same team as Shane Wright. Played really well in the playoffs, solid regular season. He's a center, so I like him for that reason as well. Wonder if he's a guy that's just getting started on the big stages of his development, and the Bruins can capitalize on that and maybe turn him into a nice center prospect. So we'll see how that goes. Just a couple names. I did ask Chris Peters, though, on his new episode of Talking Hockey Sense. Go listen to that if you want to hear some draft coverage and stuff. He mentioned some names around 54 the Bruins could go after are Adam Ingram and Gleb Trikazov, who were mentioned. Ryan Green is another one. He's going to be used, so they could like to local ties. Don't know a lot about Ryan Green personally. And Bryce McConnell-Barker, who's another center out of the OHL. I like what I've heard about Barker, a guy I don't know a ton about, though, another one of those guys. So for me, it's one of those right shot defensemen or you draft a center. That's where I'm at right now. If Seamus Casey fell to 54 and they didn't take him, I might consider shedding real tears because I want Seamus Casey really badly. He's a great player. I think they could turn him into a very legitimate puck moving defenseman on the right side behind McAvoy. And McAvoy would be a pretty good mentor for him. Could teach him some physical skills as well because he's a little smaller, but I like the player a lot. He's my dandy this year. It's not Connor McMichael. It was in the past. Cole Lind, Nathan Bastian, guys I've liked. This year, it's Seamus Casey. It's a defenseman this time. But yeah, just a quick little recap. We'll talk a little bit more about some additional draft stuff in my first round mock next week ahead of the draft. I'll be watching the draft on vacation. First time I've ever done that.
Very nice.
Fun. I'll have to annoy my family with, my reactions to things. So that would be funny. Patrice Bergeron contract stuff. We kind of touched on it earlier, but we'll see what happens there. The thing that's interesting about Bergeron, of course, outside of him being back in the mix, is it's 1 year, but we really don't know what to expect for money. I think it could literally be anywhere from like $2 million to $5 million.
It's going to be very cheap if I had to guess. I don't think he's not in it for the money at this point. Like,
I kind of feel like he'll take like $1 and $2 million, but then it'll just be laden with like bonuses and it's
and like you said earlier, you said incentives, which I 100% agree with. It's gonna be like goal total, assist points, whatever, something like you make an all-star team, you win another Selkie, like he's a couple extra $100,000, like something like that.
Yeah, let's make it work. I mean, and he's an all-class guy. They'll figure something out that works.
He has to know that going into this year with the amount of questions and needs this team has. Like, he's got to be like,
money, get it in bonuses, exactly. See if we can build a better team around me. Hopefully that's the case. But like I said, I could see it being just like 1 year, $5 million. I could absolutely see that. A little bit of a downgrade from the 6.875, even though he just had arguably the best season of his career all around. But like you said, he's not really in it for the money, I imagine. He got the surgery. He's ready. And, speaking of people that are ready, quick note, David Pastrnak posting a little training story, reposting one with his trainer over in the Czech Republic. So he's getting ready for next year. He's got to take on a big role, looking for that payday, looking to live up to that payday if they sign the extension. But we'll see what happens with Pastrnak. He's getting ready for next year, as he should be. Very happy to see that him dialed in already. So there's some negatives and some positives. We are just waiting for the draft to happen. We'll see if this is the last episode we can talk about Jake DeBrusk as a Bruin.
That's true. He's kind of been not forgotten about, but kind of the stuff with him's quieted down. I was going to ask you, obviously bringing up Pasternak's name. I saw some people on Twitter with the Fiala extension and the money he got. Do you think that's going to factor into Pastrnak at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
How much more do you think? Because you were always on the 10 million, or around 10 million for Pastrnak annually. You think that
kind of
up, down more? Or?
That kind of tells me that Pastrnak could settle around like 8.75, 9. I'll be very surprised if he gets under 8.5. I think 8.5 is what I'm expecting to be the minimum for Pastrnak. But like maybe just under 9, like he could still get like 9.5, 10. Like that's not out of the question yet. But it's that kind of thing where like you can say what you want about comparables. Sometimes they mean a lot with contracts. Sometimes they really don't. It just depends on the situation, depends on the player, the age, and all these different factors. But it does kind of set like a lower bar in a way. So we'll see how it works out. I'm optimistic that they can get something reasonable done. And if they don't, I'm just going to go apeshit and lose my shit.
Berserk. Yep.
Yeah, I'm going full berserk if that happens, that doomsday scenario. But any other Bruins factors we can think about before we segue into some Red Sox talk to wrap up the show?
Not really. The only thing I was going to just throw my hat into the draft ring really quick is you had the Chris Peters stuff on where he could see the Bruins going, and you threw out there that Ryan Green goes to BU. So I was going to say just to add on top of just the common theme of it's going to be David Quinn as your head coach and Ryan Green will be your draft pick because the BU connection and everyone will be one big happy Boston, Massachusetts, wherever the hell, New England connection.
He's not a center, but watch for Devin Kaplan. He's another guy going to BU. He's got the U.S. program ties. Devin Kaplan. Watch the name. I like Devin Kaplan, though.
Okay.
I would like the player, just not the position that much. He's a good player from what I've seen, but it's another guy with if we're talking BU ties, watch for Devin Kaplan. Maybe they'll get him in the third round. Who knows? But
just everybody. Anybody else? BU, BC, Northeastern.
BU guys. I'm trying to think some BC draft eligibles. They'll draft Charlie Leddy in the 5th or 6th round or something.
Any Merrimack kids or Maine kids or anybody else played in Hockey
Merrimack
East?
kids.
Or is there Merrimack kids?
Zach Bookman will be drafted this year. He's an incoming Merrimack defenseman, had 102 points as a defenseman in the AJHL, playing for the same team as Cale Makar. Right shot defenseman, going to a lower end hockey school. Was lower end at the time. They've turned into a pretty good program. Watch out for Zach Bookman because he's going to get drafted this year and could be a pretty big time impact defenseman that I wouldn't hate the Bruins taking, TBH, in like the 5th round or something. Zach Bookman. Very excited to watch him at Merrimack this year. Should be a impact player from the start because he's got some pretty sick offensive tools. Primarily, that seems to be the booking on him. He's an offensive defenseman. So we'll see. But I don't know. Maybe the next great Brooks Bandits turned NCAA defenseman is Zach Bookman, following in the footsteps of Cale Makar. Just saying. People might hate me for that, but
how dare you make that comparison?
It's just a joke. You're over it. I'm over it.
No one will ever be Cale Makar. How dare you?
No one will ever be Cale Makar. Funny fact is that
probably right.
They actually do have his brother, Taylor Makar.
Oh.
Colorado drafted him last year. He's a forward.
There you go.
That's going to wrap it up for hockey. We do have some Red Sox stuff, as you know, they are the only main team playing right now. And quite a stir happened on Twitter last night with
making some headlines for all the wrong reasons. Yeah, I kind of switched this on the fly while you were talking about all the hockey stuff. Originally, the plan was because it obviously is trade deadline speculation season. If you didn't know, the trade deadline is August 2nd. They pushed it back a couple of days this year with obviously the season being pushed back. So was mainly going to look at, what's some names the Red Sox could go after, reliever wise, or maybe, if they need a hitter or two, because Jackie Bradley Jr. Is in like an 0 for 30 slump right now, and Bobby Dahlbeck still stinks at first base. So maybe you could add some pieces there. But then you had the ball drop last night. And obviously we knew going into Toronto that the Red Sox were not going to have Tanner Houck or Jarren Duran because they are unvaxxed. And we, for the most part, have stayed away from the, vaccination talk and all that stuff. Players are, free to do what they want, feel how they feel about this type of stuff. We have stayed away from that. That is until last night. I'm kind of fed up with this at this point. Because for the first time this season, you saw the Red Sox lose a game solely because of that fact right there, that Tanner Houck is not on the roster right now because he is not vaccinated and therefore cannot pitch in Toronto. And like I said to you at the start of the show, I don't know how today you could wake up as a Red Sox fan and, be watching this team right now and just not be just absolutely pissed off with whether you want to blame Tanner Houck, which a lot of people have been doing today, and rightfully so. Again, like he's the de facto closer now with Garrett Whitlock on the injured list. We have some Garrett Whitlock stuff we'll get to in a second, but Houck has been the guy. He's the guy that has been asked to lock down these games. They've been shaky at times. What's up? What do you got?
I will say disclaimer, since we are saving it for next week, the trade deadline stuff. For anybody who sees it in the title that might be watching on Twitch or YouTube,
blame me for that one
next week. So blame Ryan.
I threw a curveball, no pun intended. So that was
tweeted him. Tweet tomatoes.
What the fuck? Yeah, yell at me, do whatever. I don't care.
Ooh, tomato.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean Tanner Houck, he's been good as the closer. There's been some hiccups at times where he gives you a heart attack. Can't find the strike zone. It gets hit a little bit, but for the most part, he's been the most solid option they have. And you saw again last night that he's not there. Alex Cora decides to go with Tyler Danish. Again, is he a real person? Is he a food? He looked like a piece of food last night with how bad he pitched in the 9th inning. You saw Hanser Robles come in and blow his league-leading 5th save. So I don't think something tells me Hanser Robles isn't the guy we should be closing ball games out. I don't know.
He's going to be a DFA Danish if he keeps this up.
He should have been way before this. But I saw some speculation maybe that was kind of a conspiracy little thing there that Alex Cora did, throwing Danish out for a second inning to say to management that, hey, I don't have enough with what you have or what you've given me closer wise.
Edge to him at times, he shows a little edge. Maybe that could have some legs to it.
Yeah, maybe. He had a comment today that I'll get to in a second, but that's what I was going to ask you is, I mean, like I said, Tanner Houck has caught a lot of blame today. I said it last night on Twitter. Yes, Houck deserves the blame and Duran some as well. Because they could use his speed and his leadoff ability right now. They just left 2 guys on base because Bradley struck out and Ref Snyder grounded out. So maybe you have Duran up there that changes things a little bit. But you blame those guys, but how much blame should we be putting on the Red Sox for one, not and again, becomes a gray area where you start telling people how to live their lives and, what you should be doing. But should the Red Sox be stepping in here and saying, hey, we need you for these games. We can't seem to beat anybody in the American League East this season. They're 2-7 against Toronto. Obviously, you need these guys. You're going to need them now.
They're really good.
Yep, the Yankees, you're not going to catch them. They had this same problem. That's the thing, too, that I think a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people, but some people have overlooked, is the Yankees had this problem, too, at the start of the year. They had Judge and Rizzo that were reportedly not vaccinated, and they were going to Toronto. And a couple games before, right before the series starts, Judge and Rizzo decided to get vaccinated. So you tell me if that was their own personal choice.
Yeah.
Was the team stepping in? Like
a little bit, but
but there's a time where it's like you need to think of your teammates.
It's
like
a weird situation. It is. Because I'm not gonna come out and I'm sure you're the same, but we're not gonna be like, you have to get vaccinated now so you can help us in Toronto.
I think you could definitely argue that though. Like
it's different though if you're like on the Phillies or something. Like you're not playing Toronto as much. Like Arizona. Like it's different. Like they're in your division. Like there's a little more reason to, and I'm sure that factored into Judge and Rizzo's decision.
It factored in Bogarts and Plawecki had the same.
Too. Aaron Judge is so important to that team this year too.
Absolutely,
he's the MVP favorite.
He's the odds-on MVP, right? I know Devers is having a great year, but it's for me, it's Aaron Judge leaps and bounds. He's the MVP.
Like, it's crazy. It's a tough situation, but it's got to get to a point where you have to wonder, like, if things like this keep happening, maybe they'll actually just do it. They'll be like, all right, like I can't do this anymore. Like I don't want to let my team down, even though they kind of started doing so last night. I hope this just doesn't
100% did. Yeah.
I
don't think it's a coincidence.
I can't imagine this is the last time they play Toronto.
No, they got another series right after the All-Star break, and I think the last 3 games of the season, which if they make things interesting, which they have, last 3 games of the year are in Toronto.
The ultimate shitstorm would be them losing out on a playoff spot, partially because they didn't have these guys available.
Well, that's what I mean. That's why it's so frustrating. We talked about it last week. Is this was the stretch of the year where they're starting to play well. They're coming off winning 6 or 7 games in a row before the Toronto series started. This was, I said it last week on the show, this was your prove it week where you play Toronto and then Tampa and New York for a bunch. So you have to kind of make up some games here. And now you revert back to, not being able to win some of these close games because you don't have a guy that you really need out there because the bullpen's been so just an absolute dumpster fire this season at times. You had Tanner Houck fill in pretty solid for Whitlock as the closer. And now that he's not there, you have to go to guys like Tyler Danish and, maybe overwork a Matt Strom type guy. I don't know if that's why he wasn't in the game last night or not, but you have to rely on him more. And it's just, it's the way they've handled it too. Like I talked about, you want to be there for the betterment of the team. Like Bogarts and Plawecki at the start of the year had the same problem. I don't think that the report was they weren't vaccinated. They got obviously vaccinated before the season started.
I think the report that Bogarts too.
Yeah, it was Bogarts and Plawecki, but I think Plawecki was the one that said it.
Vasquez too, though, right?
I think Vasquez, Martinez was rumored here or there. Yeah. But Plawecki was the one that basically said, I didn't want to do it, but I did it because I don't want to hurt my team out there.
Even though he, it's kind of ironic because he sucks.
But he's out there trying to help the team, trying to be, better the team
for the right reasons.
Absolutely
trying to help the team,
Mm-hmm. But that's what I mean. That's why it's so frustrating. And I don't know if you saw when Duran was asked about it before the series started, if he was going to get it, he was like, oh, I have to continue to do some research online. It's like, dude,
hold on.
Again, it's
the vaccine
frustrating thing.
Last week,
it's been around for almost
so much
2 or 3 years now.
On this thing, dude.
But that was the thing
that pisses me off.
That's really it, as it should. Again, it's the not being accountable, and again, the Red Sox not stepping in and being like, what kind of stupid ass. Even my brother, who just doesn't like anything to do with sports, we were talking about it. He heard me talking about it at dinner, and he goes, "Oh yeah, because the internet is such a great place. If you go on the web or whatever it is, the websites that tell you if you have a headache." You type in your symptoms and it's like, you might have a tumor or a massive problem. And so I just have an asteroid coming towards exactly. No, I just have a headache. I want to see what my problem is here. So the internet, which is a great place when it comes to the vaccine and all this stuff, that's the place you want to go to get your information on. That's why it's, again, you're right. I said it should piss you off as a Red Sox fan today that you're losing games because of this. And you can get away with not having Duran. Like you can cover a position player, but when you're, bona fide, apparently now the go-to closer can't go out there and play because he's, not vaccinated and he's hurting the team out there. Like that's not a good look for both the player and the team. And that's why I think the Red Sox should be held just as accountable as Houck is being held today. Like not a lot of people I feel like are talking about, how much blame do you put on Red Sox ownership for not being like, hey, like, come on now. Like the league is having the same problem. Other teams are having guys get the shot and get vaccinated to help the team out. Why can't we have this problem solved too? Which it's ridiculous. Like they talked about it today. Alex Cora was asked about it. I think he seems like he's pretty much fed up. This was from Chris Cotillo earlier. He said Alex Cora sounded pretty confident the Red Sox vaccination situations will change before they're back in Toronto in September. Said he was willing to bet $1 on it. So I don't know how much people how much betting $1 will factor into things, but you got like him too. You have to think was like, shit, I have a 1-run. Crazy. Yeah. I had a 1-run lead last night, had a game, which I probably could have and should have won. And I got to go an extra inning of Tyler Danish and then go to the league leader in blown saves, who has not been able to close out a game pretty much all season. Like you have to think at the end of the game, he was like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like very frustrated with how this goes. Cause like I said, it was such a great turnaround and they were able to fight their way back into a playoff spot. And now you're shooting yourselves in the foot for not being able to get the shot and just lack of no pun intended. Pastry. Yeah, exactly. You're relying on a guy that we still haven't figured out if he's even a real human being or not.
Never seen Tyler Danish in person. Not sure he's a real person.
No, but I don't know.
Do you have anything else?
There is. I was going to say the last thing. There is some hope on the horizon as I try to calm down from venting about the Red Sox for a couple minutes. Yeah, exactly. There is hope on the horizon. This is from Boston Strong.
My only hope.
Yeah, great ending to that show, huh?
Yeah,
really brought that series all together from being really kind of a dud, or maybe just above a dud to like an actual really, really good series. No, but Garrett Whitlock is apparently close to returning. Boston Strong had it earlier today, said, quote, per source, Garrett Whitlock will return to the Red Sox from the injured list as a reliever. This was backed up today. Again, Chris Cotillo from 3 hours ago said the Red Sox are considering moving Whitlock back to the bullpen when he returns. Cora sounded like they're leaning towards doing so. Boston Strong on Twitter was also asked about if Whitlock would be returning as the closer. The account said, quote, unlikely. It looks like that is Houck's spot. So again, like, yes, it would be nice to have Garrett Whitlock back, but if you have to continue to rely on Tanner Houck to close games out and he's not vaccinated, then
it's like the guy, the meme of the guy, he's like smiling, he's like, hey. And he's like, it's like you have Tanner Houck coming back as a reliever, and then you're like, oh, no, maybe he'll be the closer, and then you're like, oh, it's still Tanner Houck. You're like,
yeah. This is the basketball one with the guys.
No, the guy. I'll send you a picture of that.
Okay. I'm thinking of the one. It's the Bulls player where he's on the bench and he's like shaking his head and he's like,
This guy. I'll send you a picture of it.
Okay. They have the lead now on a Verdugo home run.
Check your text.
Okay, it hasn't come through yet. Still waiting.
All right. Well, I did the second phase.
I got it.
The second phase.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yep. I know.
Yeah. That guy.
I think that's a perfect way to sum it up. You're 100% right. Top one is Garrett Whitlock's back, but they're going to keep Tanner Houck as the closer, who you can't rely on when it comes to pitching north of the border. Very frustrating.
How about that?
Yeah, we started positive with the Stanley Cup stuff. Celtics was pretty positive. Verdugo. Well, that's what I mean. They're up 3-2 now. If this lead holds, who's closing the game out? Like
they'll lose 6-5 again.
Exactly. They'll lose 4-3 and not record it out in the ninth inning because you have to rely on fill in the wheel of bump. Maybe they'll give Schreiber a chance.
In from the friggin' stands.
Yeah. Yuke's at the game tonight. Can we put Yuke in as a position player on the mound, see if he can close things out? I can't imagine he'll be much worse than the combination of Pastry Man and Hansel Robles.
Pillsbury Davis.
So frustrating.
Yeah, I think that's gonna wrap it up though. We'll
think so.
Get into the trade deadline stuff we had next week. And the deadline isn't until August 2nd, so we have some time. But that is gonna wrap it up for episode 101 of the Salvaggio and Cratty Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. As we said every week, and this is such a great thing to be able to say, the listenership has been awesome. So thank you. We're continuing to grow in different areas of the world. So that's very cool also.
It's just still crazy to me. That's reaching that far.
Like, yeah. Wherever you get your podcast, you can find us. If you can't complain to us, it's okay. Well, we won't take it personally. Yeah, if you can rate us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you're listening there, go ahead and do that. We appreciate the feedback. Any that we do get. But I lost my train of thought.
Find us on.
Yep. Follow us on. It's a great intro. Really selling me on listening to the show in the future as my English slips away from me. You can follow me on Twitter at Mike_Cratty. You can follow Ryan at Ryan_Salvaggio. And you can follow the show at Salvaggio and Cratty Pod. Fill Salvaggio and Cratty into the TikTok search bar. You can find us there. Yeah. Stay safe, stay healthy, be nice to people. Maybe we'll have a Jake DeBrusk trade to talk about next week. That's kind of the underlying storyline, but the draft's a good opportunity to trade him, and it's coming up. We'll see what happens next week. We'll see what happens with the Red Sox and the Celtics and all that jazz with free agency. And we'll talk to you then for episode 102 next Wednesday when I will be on vacation. But I'm just so addicted to the grind that we will be recording and we will not stop. So
nice.
Until next time. We might do it at a different time, but I don't know yet. We'll see. I'm rambling.
All right.
See you next week. Peace.